Okay, we will now continue where we left off. Right, so here are the instructions on how to run Hadoop, Hive on Hadoop. So let's now create directory, so temp and the warehouse directories, right? So this is where we left off. So let's check first if Hadoop is running, right? So here I see name nodes, and so at least my key components of Hadoop are running. I can even test if file systems are running. Okay, so first let's create the temp directory. So when you see that error, that means Hadoop went into safe mode. Now there are many reasons why Hadoop would go into safe mode. So we can check out the logs to see. So this is the log directory. I mean, you don't really have to do this. Worst case scenario, you can always reinstall. But let's see what the issues are. So here it says, okay, there's a so data node shut down. Alright, and let's look at the name node. So it's a safe node, so log not rolled, so name node is in safe mode. So we can leave safe mode, right? So I can run that command to leave safe mode. So let's run that command. HDFS admin safe mode leave. Okay, yeah, it's just a force of habit to use the Hadoop command. So let's check the logs again. So name node is now running. Data node is also, but it's still not running. So let's see, since I am not in mode anymore, let's check the directory. Let's try to create a directory. So now worked. Let's check out the logs again. So apparently I'm running now. Let's see, user Hive warehouse. Oops, you create user Hive first, then create warehouse. Okay, then I already did this Hive home. So let's check if we have Hive home set. Okay. So this we don't necessarily do this. Let's follow the instructions that I provided in my instruction set here. So first we'll follow that portion first, then we replace the guava. So let's take the guava from, okay, now it's 3.3.1. Take the, because there's like a version mismatch. The one in the Hive folder is much older than the one in this. So let's copy that, right? So let's copy Hadoop. Oh no, 3.1 in my case. And share Hadoop HDFS guava. Lib guava, yeah, it's stupid. It's still the same version, and I transfer to the Hive lib. So notice there's also a guava here, but it's an older version. So I'll just move it there, right? I copy it, and I remove the old version of guava. Okay, that's the first step. Next is, I already did this, so I need to create my meta store. So schema tool, init schema, so I can run that. So I didn't proceed. Notice I didn't proceed with creating the schema a while ago. So I can just create the schema now. Right. So again, that guava problem is because the Apache Hive we're using is a really old version. And Hive is no longer, but Hive is now a mainstream project. So I think there's a newer version of Hive, which for the students of the succeeding semester, I will be using the new version. But this is the last time we'll be using the old version. But for the purposes of the class, the old version is fine. Right, so I'm creating a meta store. Now by default, Hive will use a meta store that's stored in the Derby DB format. So Derby DB is a Java-based It's a Java-based database that runs on a single node, and it can run in memory, so its performance is quite fast. It's used as an embedded database, similar to other database systems like SQLite. Okay, so here, so that I think went well. Yes. Next is let's download the files, which I already did, but I'll download it again. So no, I can't download it because I already turned it off. But anyway, I downloaded it here, so you know it's already here in the log folder. So the command, in case you're wondering, would be something like this: recursive and log. So of course, assuming there's nothing inside that log one. Now this won't work anymore because I already shut down my AWS instance, but for yours, it should work. Okay. Sometimes there might be a double dash or a single dash, I'm not sure. But anyway, just run it and you download the files. Now you don't have to download all, just download as much as you can. Okay. Next is to transfer some of that stuff into the log directory of my HDFS. So right now it's in the log directory of my machine. I will now create a log directory in my HDFS. So logs directory with an S para. So Hadoop FSLS. So in my directory today I have input. So I'll create a directory called logs. And I will go into my downloaded here and I will transfer put asterisk logs. I hope I got the syntax right. So it will upload from my home system up. Oops. Right. Oh, looks like we have a problem here. So this one is normally a sign of a corrupted HDFS ecosystem. So what we can do here is we can recreate the entire HDFS ecosystem. So let's do that. First, I have to shut down my entire Hadoop ecosystem. So shut that down first. So this one makes sure that no nodes are running. So you have to make sure that medyo you don't leave any Hadoops running, because if we do the restart and there's something running, it may still be using the old configuration. Now, I'm sure there's a way of fixing this, but since this is not a Hadoop system administration class, so let's focus mostly on getting these, getting the Hadoop running just enough for us to run the Hadoop exercises. Okay, so we're shutting down. A bit of patience. So they're still shutting down the resource manager. Resource manager is still there. Okay, and that should be. Oops, resource manager and node manager are still running. Because I only do stop DFS. So stop that. There. So that should also stop the two of those. There we go. Right. So I'm done and I'm not running. So in order to do a clean, you have to remove there are some directories in the temp directory. So let's look at that. So there's a Hadoop directory here, the mapred jobs, right? So there's also Hadoop WYY, and this is where the DFS stuff. This is probably what got corrupted, right? So that we get rid of that also. As a matter of fact, we can get rid of all the Hadoop stuff in the temp directory, and let's recreate that. So there's no Hadoop folders left. Okay. Right. So of course that means that my Hadoop ecosystem is now new. So I'll have to do the fresh install Hadoop configuration. Where's that? Hadoop sudo distributed node. There you go. So we don't have to reinstall the software part. You just have to, don't have to do the config. You just have to reformat. There you go. So again, Hadoop is not running. I deleted all the working files, and this one reformats Hadoop. Right. So notice there's no Hadoop daemon running yet, but it's creating a pseudonym node and it's doing the format process. So this creates a fresh name node. So hopefully it removes whatever corrupted the previous name node. Okay. So let's see. There may be some complexities about disk space issues. So a while ago in class we had a problem with the disk space because I ran out of disk space in my home system. I was running a VM. The problem with Hadoop is Hadoop expects that space to be available. So when it ran out of disk space, it got confused, and I think it assumed that there was no disk space at all. And that's the reason for the problem. That's why we need to reformat to kind of hint to the Hadoop system that, hey, I have space again. Okay, the formatting is done. Let's start Hadoop. Alright. Let's just start all the components. Okay. So this should be running. So here I didn't actually delete directories, etc. I simply deleted the working files in the temp directory, and that is what I recreated by reformatting things. Okay, the DFS format, the DFS components have been started, and after that the yarn components will be started. So if you go to my second C, DFS components started, starting the yarn components. So let's see. This is the reason why you need passwordless SSH in all machines, because that's actually how Hadoop speaks to each other. Okay. Let's wait for that for a bit. Let's look at the next steps. Create my user. This is the example. This is the yarn stuff. Pseudo distributed operation. So let's see where we are there. Okay. Let's so I have to create my home directory first. For Hive also. Create the Hive warehouse. Temp directory. What else do you need to create? Oh, this is just the test. We don't need to do this. Okay, so let's just assume it's working. And let's go back. So let's do this again. Because of course, since I nuked the thing, so I have to do this again. So give everybody access to the temp directory. Give everybody access to the warehouse directory. See, all things running. Okay, let's have a look. Temp. Okay, temp directory, allow everybody. Alright. Hive. The warehouse should also allow everybody. Although since I created it and I'm using my user, of course I have permissions to it. So this is kind of redundant, but if you're trying to install it in a production system, that's what you need to do. Okay, then let's do the schema. Okay, so let's follow these instructions. You don't have to do the guava thing anymore because we just did that a while ago. So let's initiate RD. Let's see. So again, we need to do this again because I reformatted the HDFS. So it's short of reinstalling the whole VM. Of course, worst comes to shove, you install the whole VM, you install all the components. But that one was like just short of the whole VM reinstall thing, because that's where it puts the working files which were in the temp directory. It's failed because already exists. Okay, so let's delete. Sorry. Yeah, it apparently did not delete the metastore stuff. So where did I put the metastore? Okay, so metastore is in the directory where I ran it. So let's create a new one. Again, this is necessary because I recreated the HDFS, so it's better to recreate the metastore. So in this case, the metastore is not in HDFS, but it's in my local file system, which is okay for the purposes of this class. Okay, so let's see, creating that. Let's look at the next step. So next step is download the files. I did that, and I'll upload it to the logs directory. So I'll create a logs directory. Okay, let's wait for the installation. Then create a logs directory. Then I put I go into Hadoop FS put into my logs directory. So just please take note of the file name logs, log. Just make sure that they are consistent. So this is moving it from my current file system, which I downloaded the AWS files to my HDFS file system. Okay. Let's see if that's working. Should be working now. Let's see logs. There you go. Okay, that step is done. Next is I will need to look for this. So let's export it. Now, is this the correct version of Apache? So Apache 2.3.9. Yeah, so slight difference from last semester. Okay. And let's now go to the next step. Let's hope this works. So you can run bin Hive. So let's try running Hive. So when you get those funny partition issues or name node issues, you can do these steps again to like refresh or reformat your Hive without reinstalling the whole VM, because it takes a while to reinstall the whole VM. So effectively you're just deleting the Hadoop folders in the /temp. Okay, there's no HBase because I'm not using HBase yet, but for next week's class we'll be covering HBase, so this error will not appear. Okay, so hopefully, fingers crossed, you should see a command line interface pop up in front of you and things are working. Now getting Hive to work in your own machine is actually pretty hard, right? So what we're doing right now is already not, it's not what most data scientists or data engineers would do. You'd be using a platform that's typically already ready, or you'll be using a commercial version like a Cloudera that has a nice graphical interface that does these things for you. But again, if you can do it this way, then magaling ka, kasi this is a hard way, right? So that worked. Let's do this. Let's add jar, except that I'll just replace 2.3 3.8 with 9. Okay, so let's run that first command. That's to specify the location of that hcatalog jar, because we're going to be using the JSON serde that is in that jar file. Okay, then again, Hadoop, you know, it's batch, so it's not exactly the fastest. So let's prep the next command. Drop if it's existing. So just to be sure, let's drop the table if it exists. Wait, cause does not exist. So let's check again. Home WYY Apache 2.9 bin share. Oh, catalog. This catalog. Hive. So they changed its location. Okay, so this is the new location. Again, this is why we have to be careful with these, you know, system parameter things, because stuff move around. There you go. Then next step is let's drop the table if it exists. Let's drop it. Of course, it will say, sorry. Oh my god, what did I do? Okay. So I exited prematurely. I apologize. Let's run that again. Let's run these two commands in one go. Okay. Shall we? Yeah. Again, if you have memory to spare, give your VM more memory. Okay, there you go. So run those two commands. So the add jar first. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong location. Right, so let's put the correct location. Which is this one. So of course the drop table doesn't require that jar to be loaded, so we'll proceed with the drop table. Okay, right. So let's now run this external table. So again, you notice it's in HDFS, meaning it's in my local HDFS user WYY logs external table. Let's copy that. Let's create that. That shouldn't take very long. Then we realize the external table. Right? Oh, I think it's about time to give my VM more memory. Okay, so this one will scan user WYY logs and we'll look at all the files and we'll check if this schema matches. So it actually fits it. So this is where you're defining the schema. So kahit na Hadoop is a schema on read system, by running these commands, you're actually creating an external table that pre-creates a schema on top. Right, so those are the schemas that exist. Okay, then I can run my select. So here, what did I run? So I simply count. Again, some SQL semantics may not work. For example, I believe count star doesn't work. So doing this, I think, does not work properly, right? So, but again, it will take a long time because this is Hadoop, and it powers up the machine and sets up mappers and reducers and stuff like that. So medyo matagal-tagal yan. Okay. Yeah, mapper, reducer, etc. So I'm running an old version of Hive, by the way. That's what this error is about. And we're actually, Hive is already at version 12, right? So this is actually quite an old one. The reason why we use this is because it's a simpler one. It's a simpler version of Hive, and for our activities, it's actually quite sufficient. And we're not actually running on a main MapReduce cluster. But there are already more newer and easier to use versions. That's what we could do, although it has more components to install. Ito kasi wala masyadong component to install, kaya medyo mabilis. Okay, so that's why it's running, and it did actually work. So I was able to run a query. So again, SQL semantics. So let's look at this. So user agent, process ID, browser cookie. So add ID. So let's say add ID. Let's look at add ID from impressions, order by request begin time. And descending. Oops. Guys, you have to also put request begin time. Right? So I'll display this request time and add ID, and I'll sort them by request begin time. But since I did not download all the files, this shouldn't take very long. I'm only 19,000 records versus the million records that was available in this data set. But if you run it in EMR and you point it to that folder, it will process all million records. Now, just as a warning, JSON is pretty expensive to parse, so these particular queries are extraordinarily expensive. Okay. So let's see, let's do that. It's running local Hadoop, yep. There, and this is the result. So basically all 19,000 records sorted by time. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Thank you very much, and I hope this was able to show you how to fix your Hive or your Hadoop installation in case it's broken. Thank you.